FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Racism didn't flood the black neighborhoods of New Orleans, but racism established and enforced the residential patterns that made those neighborhoods black. Residential segregation took hold of our nation's cities generations ago when no one denies that overt racism was the norm. Some of the nation's earliest race riots were sparked by white residents who used violence to drive black families from their neighborhoods. Many American cities were segregated by force of law until the Supreme Court invalidated racial zoning in 1917. Those cities and many others replaced racial zoning with an almost equally effective private substitute, racially restrictive real covenants, until those too were invalidated in 1948. Banks, real estate agents, residents, and in some cases the federal government conspired to enforce segregation informally and formally until Congress prohibited housing discrimination in 1968. And civil rights legislation was no silver bullet. Even today, studies and audits continue to find illegal discrimination in the sale and rental of housing. Some real estate agents steer black applicants to black neighborhoods and refuse to show them available properties in white neighborhoods. And some landlords lie and claim no vacancies when blacks ask to rent an apartment, but offer white applicants several vacancies on the same day. Today's segregated neighborhoods were marked out in the pre-civil rights era, and we've inherited the racist urban planning of past generations just as surely as we've inherited the gridiron streets of Manhattan, the freeways of Los Angeles, and the cable cars of San Francisco. So when victims of Katrina insist that it's no accident that so many of the victims of the disaster were black, they're right. It is no accident that black neighborhoods developed in the less desirable parts of the city, the parts of most cities that were available when blacks were excluded from white neighborhoods. It's no accident. And in this sense, Katrina was both a natural disaster and a racial justice issue. But is there a group of living racists who are directly responsible for the injuries suffered by Katrina victims? Contrary to Kanye West's assertion, there's little evidence that George Bush cares less about poor black people than about poor whites. The conservative Bush administration was ideologically predisposed to be contemptuous of social programs and the agencies that administered them. That included FEMA, which the administration staffed with political hacks rather than experienced professionals, and placed under the Department of Homeland Security, where its disaster relief mandate was diluted by the counterterrorism agenda. These were, in retrospect, very bad decisions, but they weren't racist. FEMA management could have easily left white San Franciscans huddled in inadequate shelters for days after a major earthquake. This type of racism, or more precisely racial injury, without racists, accounts for a large and growing share of the racial injustice in our society. The overt and vicious racial contempt of the recent past poisons interracial relations today, transforming what might otherwise have been minor inconveniences into severe traumas and making unintentional slights seem like deliberate snubs. If we are to enjoy either racial justice or social harmony, we must correct these problems. But in a growing number of cases, it's both counterproductive and unfair to look for racists to condemn. These are social problems that demand social solutions, not individual misdeeds that demand excoriation and individual reparation.